You're listening to the Full Contact Poker Podcast with Daniel Negreanu. And now your host, Daniel Negreanu.
Well, hello everybody. Daniel Negreanu here with the Full Contact Poker Podcast, riding solo. Got a lot on my mind, a lot of things going on in the poker world. We got the award shows that just happened. We've got announcements from PokerStars about Power Up Poker. Not a lot they've said about that, but I definitely want to delve deep into what I know about the game and part of the reasons why I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. If you're a Hearthstone player, if you're a Magic player, anybody who's played that format, this is like basically just designed for you. So we're going to cover a lot of different things. I played the Aria 25Ks, a couple of them this weekend. I didn't play the 50K, just was burnt out from the first two, and I didn't win anything. So I was like, bleh. The thing about those tournaments, they're fun, right? But, the first 3-4 hours, there's a decent amount of play. You start with 100 big blinds, you can move your chips and blah, blah, blah. But then once you get past like the 5-hour mark, it's, pretty crapshooty because it needs to be. It's a one-day event. And if you don't run hot in that thing at those stages with your all-in flips, then you're just not going to do well. So it's a small field, but really tough. I mean, it's probably one of the tougher tournaments you're going to find. And I guess it's hit or miss. It depends. Sometimes you get, a field full of recreationals, or at least some of them. But the fields that I've played there so far have not been very, very lucrative in terms of weak players. They're just really super tough. So anyway, that's not all we want to talk about. We want to start with the rumblings I've been reading on, Twitter and different things since the American Poker Awards, which I attended this year. And we were up for Podcast of the Year, and I genuinely got to say I'm thankful we did not win, because I would have been too concerned with more backlash from winning, right? Because we only had 6 really in the can for 2016, and Joey Ingram had 850 or something like that. And, he's been doing it for a very, very long time, and it mattered to him. It was very obvious to me. So I've got plenty of awards and recognition in my life for the things that I contribute. And I definitely think that either him or, frankly, the guys, Terrence and Adam, who do a great job with their podcasts. I listen all the time, the Poker News guys. Lots of really great podcasts available today. It's a cool medium, especially to talk poker. And that's what we're going to do here today. First thing I really want to talk about a little bit was Kate Hall. We're going to start there. Kate Hall, for those that you don't know, she's a woman who came on the scene about a year and a half ago and chose to be a professional poker player. Very, very opinionated about her beliefs. She stands for what she believes in. And she won the GPI female GPI award for the highest ranked woman, which was about 78th place. And she ended up, discussing, and I was actually filming it, and I was sitting next to Maria Ho, and if you saw my vlog, you'd see this. I was like, how much you want to bet she said something political? And I laid 2-1, right? Because, she's not going to waste that opportunity. Part of why I think she wanted to win the award, and I think she echoes this, is that it gives her a platform to discuss things that are important to her. So I think she handled it really well in terms of what she said. She said that she had mixed feelings about winning the award, understandable, because she doesn't feel like it's that something that's like mental should be divided into 2 different sections. Like, there shouldn't be a need, because women are not necessarily, there's no reason to think that they're less intelligent. It's unlike sports. Like if you had, tennis, for example, it's just a fact that men are, stronger and more athletic, they're just stronger, period. So poker, that's not the case. I mean, obviously far less, a very small percentage of the field is women. But this award, it's been around for a while. We've always paid special attention to ladies' events. And, there's always been the question, are they good for poker? Are they bad for poker? Do people like them or not? So she took the opportunity to explain how she would hope that she was respectful of the event. And I was really, I guess I would have been concerned that, you go in there and win the award and then kind of like, just be negative towards the whole thing. And I don't think she was. I think she was very, honest in how she felt about it, but thankful as well. So I thought, I really don't have any beefs with how she handled it. So after, she made her comments, then we had Natasha Mercier, the newly married to Jason Mercier, speak on Twitter about her personal beliefs about ladies' awards and how important they are to her and how she tries to win them, and they matter. And there was kind of like a little back and forth between her and Kate Hall. And it sort of got me to thinking, not about the women issue, but just there was the point brought about super high rollers and how like Natasha's like, I'd love to win GPI Player of the Year, but I don't play the super high rollers. So all that's really left for me is the Female Player of the Year award, and I think that would be an honor to win, and so. I'm going to be thinking about. So last year, the super high rollers at Aria, like the ones that I'm talking about, there's like 6, 8 a month almost, it feels like now. And there are these 20, 30 player fields, right? Where basically, I mean, for lack of a better term, people are just like kind of padding their stats, if you will. And I haven't played them. I haven't been playing them, but I've noticed like just big numbers. And it's just like literally, if you have 25 people, right? Even if you're not even a winning player, right? If you could be like a losing player in that field, you're still going to end the year if you play them all with typically like 500,000-600,000 at least in tournament winnings, or in that neighborhood if you play them all, right? Like you could do all that and still lose money on the year in those things. So what it does from a GPI perspective for the tournament player of the year, it kind of really skews it, because it's far easier to have results in an event like that with such a small field than it is to have like meaningful points and results in fields that have, 500 players or 1,000 players or even more, which you'll have at the World Series of Poker. So I thought about it. I thought, either we have like a special high roller list, super high roller list, where there's like a separate category for, the super high roller events, or even better yet, I think having a GPI award or have a GPI ranking for events 10,000 or below. So nothing higher than a 10K counts. What this does, it gives guys like Maurice Hawkins, who, was very, very happy to be Breakout Player of the Year. He won an award there, and he's a grinder, and he made some points about how, like, frankly, he believes he could do well in these super high rollers, but it's not simply open to him because he's not been able to raise the funds to do so. And the vast majority of people that are playing in these super high rollers are not there because they have a bankroll to do it. They've just networked really well. They've made connections with people who have money, who have faith in their game, and are willing to put up the money. So often, in a 100K buy-in, some of these guys are playing for as little as 5 to 10% of themselves, which seems kind of silly to me in some degree, because if I was in that position, right, financially, and I have been when I was much younger, I was in my early 20s, I think, I was playing for Ted Forrest for a little while. I was playing, playing big or whatever. I made some money for myself. I had a little bit of money. And I thought, you know what? I have enough money to play these $100 events, right? So why don't I play these $100 tournaments rather than have a half of myself in, higher buy-in tournaments where my edge is smaller? So I'd rather take all of myself. And, the only reason I was playing for Ted way back then is because I didn't have any stake whatsoever to play. So it was basically like out of necessity. But if I have enough money to play, I feel like it's always better to play my own. Now, if someone throws a free roll at you, there's no reason not to. I just think from a time perspective, like, is it worth your time to spend that much energy on the super high rollers that are typically tougher and your edge is going to be much smaller if you're playing for a small amount, rather than take all of yourself in the $1,500 buy-ins, the 5Ks, and things like that are available all across the world. So anyway, I think that would be kind of cool. What has happened with the GPI ranking or the system this year is they did notice that the Aria high rollers kind of threw things way out of whack. Kerry Katz, the creator of Poker Central, the creator of these events, ended up coming like 6th on the GPI last year. No results outside of the Aria, essentially, which just goes to show, like, he did really well, actually. He'd won several of them and, obviously made a lot of final tables, because you start with essentially 2 to 3 tables to, right off the bat. So he was like, yeah, that seems absurd that I would be ranked 6th on this list. So they have made changes. They have made retroactive changes to make those events value less, as well as upping the minimum number of players required for it to count to 32, I believe, because there's a lot of them that had like 22, 23 people, and then the point structure wasn't factoring that in so much, so these guys were just getting massive points. Now, so we got into that discussion, and then, the discussion turned into some people saying these things are stupid, they shouldn't have them. Like, what's the point? They don't mean anything. Player of the Year, GPI, none of it means anything. And, hey, in terms of, like, what does it really mean, right? What does it mean if a guy's GP, David Peters, who grinded every single event, he ended up GPI player? What does it mean in the bigger context? Does it mean he's the best player in the world? Not necessarily, obviously. It just means that he had the best year and he did well. These poker awards that are given out to these people, does it mean anything that, the peers thought this or that? Like, it doesn't have any meaning in terms of, like, a scientific display of what is true or untrue about like this was for sure the best, tournament under 5K. This was definitely the moment of the year. It's all subjective, right, in those cases. So the question is like, what's the value of having poker rankings and awards? And I think there's plenty of it, especially for a game we're trying to grow, right, and bring people in. I know for a fact, I can tell you with absolute certainty that many people play tournaments. They play more tournaments, especially when they're doing well, because of the rankings. David Peters, for sure. Down the stretch, it's something that he wanted to win. Now, what does it mean? Does he get a financial benefit from that? No. But you know what? We're game players, man. You play video games, right? To reach the pinnacle, to get to rank 1 and all those kind of things. So if there's a ranking system out there, it drives professional players outside of just simply the, allure of money. This matters to them. Not that it means, just because you win the award, you're the the GOAT, the greatest of all time or whatnot. But these are fun. They bring more people into the game. So I've noticed since I was 23, cash game players tend to have a massive disdain. And I spoke about this with Nick Schulman when we did the podcast about how they kind of just have this jealousy, disdain for tournament players because obviously that's what the poker media focuses on. That's what the average, poker fan focuses on. And one of the key reasons for that is they have no idea what's going on in cash games. They don't know who's the biggest winner in Bobby's room. They don't know who the losing players are. There's no way of sort of gauging that. There's no ranking system for cash game players. It's simply, all about money, right? Which is, it's just kind of ironic to me because, a lot of the guys when I grew up playing, they had sort of these freaking tournament players. But there was clearly some sort of venom there. They were offended by tournament players just in general, or the idea of a ranking system that ranked them, because a lot of the time they felt and rightly so, that they're better. Guys and these aren't the names that would do that, but guys like Ray Decardani and David Oppenheim, who are some of the best cash game players in the world, they look at some of these tournament, quote unquote punks, and they're like, bring them on. I'll destroy them. I'll crush them. And that's fine, right? But I ask people, I wonder, what's the harm? Why hate on this kind of stuff? I don't understand the venom, right? We have these ranking systems. If you don't like them, don't play. Don't pay attention. But a lot of people do. It creates interest. It gives people at Poker Central an opportunity, for example, or Poker News or any poker media to discuss things, to look at races. It's fun, okay? It's just freaking fun. Everything doesn't have to be so damn serious. So I just feel in sort of buttoning up this topic that sure, ranking systems are not perfect, but if you look at a game like tennis, right? Neither is tennis. With tennis, volume matters. So the more events you play, the more likely you're going to up your rank because you get points across every tour. So sometimes you'll see Serena Williams come in as the 11th seed when she's clearly the best of the bunch, but she's the 11th seed because she didn't put in as much volume. And the same, I guess, holds true with the GPI. And the GPI has actually done some things to kind of curb volume being the one and only thing that matters because they limit the number of results that you can post in a year that get you points. So does that make it where volume doesn't matter? No, of course. Volume still matters more than anything else. Having said that, though, it doesn't mean an infinite amount more. So, for example, if every single result you had counted and you got a guy like DP, who's a super grinder, cashed 50 times, right? There's nobody catching that. He just wins, right? Because he's just played more events than everybody else. Now, what this does is, he can only count his top 11 or 12. So if someone played, let's say he cashed for 50, but he can only use the top 12. Okay. Well, somebody else who cashed in 16 can use his top 12. There's a chance that person could have a higher ranking than David Peters. So it does kind of allow for a wider range of player to have a chance that doesn't require playing 200 plus tournaments a year. My schedule has gotten smaller every year. Basically, I struggle to play 50 events a year, so it's very difficult for me to be relevant in rankings outside of the World Series of Poker, which I grind every year because I care about the World Series of Poker Player of the Year. I'm not going to, I'm not ashamed to say that. I've won it twice, and I want to be the first one to get to 3 before anyone else gets to 2. I know that Jason Mercier wants to win that thing too, and he did this year. And I know that other players care about this. When Brandon Jack Harris was in the running, when George Danzer, we care. So we care. Why are you going to hate on us for that? You know what I'm saying? Leave us alone. So that's that for that topic. I'm going to talk a little bit more about, let me close one more thing. The Aria tournaments, if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend going to Poker Central and listen to Heads Up with Remco, the latest episode with Bryn Kenny. Now, Bryn Kenny's an interesting kind of player. He doesn't look like the prototypical guy you'd expect to be, able to handle like the young, I guess, what do they call them, the Fedor bots, the young Germans who, basically have worked on ranges and things like that. Bryn is a field player. He's very, very good, but he just doesn't fit the mold. You look at Bryn and you think, wow, this guy wins? Not only does he win, he's very, very good. So he had a very good 1 hour podcast with Remco. So I highly recommend you subscribe also, because the Poker Central podcast, they're just getting better and better. Remco's got a lot of experience doing this. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's grown to be like a really good interviewer. And they also have their sort of wrap up of the news and different types of things. So I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, go to PokerCentral.com, find the podcast. I'm sure you can find it somehow that way. I don't know. I'm not good with all that stuff. But, one of the things that Bryn was talking about was just how much better players have gotten in the last 2 years. And I concur. I think at the highest levels, the super high rollers, when they first started coming out, in the first couple of years, there's still a lot of players who were like, quote unquote, good, or everyone, thought they were good. And they were like, I watched and I'm like, these guys make a lot of dumb plays. Well, that's not true quite as much anymore. These guys are good. Like the creme de la creme today are significantly better than they were, than those from 2 years ago. The way that they think about poker hands, the way that they discuss poker hands has even changed. Like the thought process that goes into a hand. You notice if I do YouTube videos, I try to keep it as layman as possible in terms of, the way that I deliver the information. I don't want to speak over your head. I don't want to talk in such a way that you just feel like, what? I try to just speak English, basically. But when you talk poker hands with the very youngest of young generation of Germans and whatnot, they break down hands differently than, like I said, even players from a year and a half ago. Just much more sophisticated in terms of the lingo, in terms of the way that they think about hands, because really a lot of that comes from the aspiration to play GTO, which stands for Game Theory Optimal. So there's been definitely like a concerted effort by the young generation to essentially try to be flawless, in terms of being exploitable. Like I'm going to play a style and I'm going to play an approach that no matter what you do, you're not going to be better than me. You could be as good, you can be tied, but you're not going to be better than, or you're not going to be able to, exploit me. So definitely gotten tougher, and it's been fun for me to, have the weekend to play with these guys and kind of see what I'm up against in terms of competition. Like I said, I haven't been running very, very well, but I tweeted out recently that I sort of like crave losing streaks, and because when I go through losing streaks, if I ever do in my career, it makes me better. It's a character builder. It always I've been counted out so many times it's laughable in terms of people saying, oh, he's finished. These young guys are too good. He can't win no more. It's over. But I love that. I kind of thrive under that. And so I know that I haven't been running very, very well, especially in the super high rollers in the last year and a half. Just done really well in them historically, obviously with my biggest cash, in the one drop. But I'm not worried about it. I just got a fire lit under my butt to continue to improve and continue to focus on my opponents, and really just, I don't know, normally I don't really, the last couple of years I didn't really, super high roller ball, whatever, I'm just being wrong. But now I'm really looking forward to it. It's like a really prestigious premier event now, especially with the way in which Nick Schulman and Ali Najad did the commentary. It was a live event. I mean, all poker fans, if you are a diehard poker fan, it's got to be like your favorite event, especially if No Limit's your game. It's got to be all the top players, Nick Schulman, the shot clock. Wow. Live. It just doesn't get any better. All right, moving on to YouTube. As I mentioned, been more active with the YouTube channel. I've got Monday tips rolling out that are, again, as I geared towards not only beginners, because I think that all players can learn something from. And then the Thursday hand breakdown. We're going to add a couple fun new things to the rotation. So I'll probably, right now we have a schedule of Monday and Thursday for videos, and the vlog whenever, I get I'm thinking about the vlog once a month. I did a vlog about my LA trip. Check it out. It was kind of fun. The American Poker Awards, the trip, a little bit of alcohol involved. So the camera might be a little dizzy at times, but I really enjoy doing that. It's a lot of fun putting it together. And in creating. And, the inspiration for me and that was like really Jay Cody at first, because I saw Jay Cody was doing that. And I thought, let me see, what is this vlog thing? I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, but not in exactly the same way. And with the ability and the technology they have now to like kind of do it on your own. I had a guy follow me around back in the day. And if you guys don't remember that footage from the old World Series blogs I did, I'm going to start releasing those out relatively soon. So we got the vlog, we got the podcast, we got those two things. And like I said, we're going to throw in another thing into the mix. And what I want to talk about was like how I choose the content that I choose to use, right? So, because there was a big kind of like controversy over pulling of videos. And there was one, case with myself where I got permission from PokerStars and Poker Central to use any of their content, from Maury Escandani, basically to use any of his as well. But what happened was when I did my first Shark Cage video with myself and Phil Ivey, it hadn't been released yet to YouTube. So they weren't aware, and they, PokerStars is very serious about their copyright, so it got blocked in the UK. So people couldn't watch the video in the UK. I quickly made some phone calls to PokerStars and said, okay, yep, they fixed it, so not an issue anymore. But anyway, the point is the practice that I take is I don't just assume that I'm okay to use people's content. I don't know enough about fair usage or anything along those lines. So my MO in terms of the way that I've always built relationships my whole life is if I'm going to use somebody's content or a song or like a clip of something, I just reach out to them. So, and just make sure it's okay with them. So I reached out to Poker Central, of course, an ambassador. They said, absolutely. PokerStars. And then I wanted to use some of the high stakes poker hands because they're awesome, right? There's like the hand with myself and Gus Hansen, which I actually did a hand breakdown of 10 years ago for Poker VT that I'm going to release again without the actual footage. So there's a lot of cool hands that I would have loved to have broke down. So I inquired and I asked. I said, Maury, can I use these hands? And he said, let me get back to you. So he went to GSN and he inquired about whether or not it was okay for me to use them, and they said nope, they don't allow people doing videos of that. So I said okay, oh well, that's okay. I have plenty of other hands that I can use. I have the Poker After Darks, there are others and this and that. And then so apparently I don't know, a week or two later, probably like 3 weeks or so, GSN has like actively sought out the videos that are being broken down, and they've asked them to be pulled. Okay, not like, I guess in a roundabout way, maybe like I woke them up because they weren't aware, but like I had absolutely nothing to do with like pulling of videos. But I do, people were like mocking me about the idea that I said, it's not okay to use them. But that's what I was told. Like I inquired about it. I was told, no, don't use them. So I didn't use them. Do I think it's a big deal? No, not really. But I mean, like I said, the responsible approach that I take, that's respectful of people's content, is always just to reach out to them first before I decide to use it. And if they say no, they say no. If they say yes. So all I did was take the responsible approach that I thought, because I saw other people doing it, but I was like unclear about whether it was fine. So I went to the source. Source said no. That's the end of that. So that's it for like, I guess, poker issues-ish kind of thing that I wanted to talk about. But really what I wanted to get to, some of you have mentioned how much you hate when I drink water while I do these podcasts. I'm sorry. I mean, what are you gonna do? Oh, before we get into the big, should we do this before or after? Let's do this hand before. I want to talk about one specific hand I played against David Peters, the Silent Assassin, and I'm really not happy with the way that I played this hand. It was at the Aria High Roller this weekend. It was a 25K. The blinds were 2,500 and 5,000 with a 500 ante. I raised under the gun. I believe we were 7-handed at the time, or 6-handed. I raised with ace-7 of clubs to 11,500. All folded to David Peters, who called in the big blind. Okay. The flop is 7-6-3 with 2 spades. So I've got top pair and I've got, the best kicker. So he checks and I decide, and I'm not going to explain why I do this, but it's not like that big a deal overall. I decide to bet 15,000. A lot of guys would bet smaller, 12,000, 13, maybe even like less than 11,500. It might be like, 10 or something like that. I decided to bet 15,000, and David Peters calls. So I really would have hoped to just pick up the pot on this flop because it's such a dangerous board for me, because I can't really represent credibly a lot of that board because I raised under the gun. He's in the big blind, right? So he can, a lot of the turn cards, he can just like rip it, right? Well, the turn's a 4 of hearts. Just brutal card. And he bets 28,000. And, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, man, if I make this call now, right, he's going to bomb the river, man. He's not going to he's just not going to dog it. He's going to put me to the test. So if I call this turn, I got to call the river if nothing crazy comes, like a spade or something like that. So, really, I thought about folding because I just didn't. It wasn't. I had enough chips where I felt like I could fold and move on to the next hand and go, okay, so what? He bluffed me with 8-9, 8-10. Because, think about it. If he has any sort of a draw, 8-10, 8-9, even Queen Jack, he can literally have any two freaking cards. If he checks and calls there, he's supposed to bet this turn, a lot. Okay, because he can credibly rep that turn where I can't. Again, I might have ace-5 suited. I could have pocket fives. A lot of possibility, but unlikely, right? So it puts me in a really bad spot. And in hindsight, if you're going to call this turn, you pretty much have to dedicate yourself against most players. Otherwise, you're really exploitable to calling the river. You can't just call turn and fold river, right? So anyway, I call turn 28K, leaving myself with 140,000. And, of course, the river's a 4, and he goes, boom, all in. He bombs it. So I actually use my time extension, which is rare. You get 3 of them. I don't usually use them because I think that I tanked for a minute and a half. And, man, I ultimately folded. And, again, I don't care what he had. I just can't play the hand that way, long term. It's just not a good play. So I was disappointed with myself because – if I'm going to make that call in the turn, and I honestly, I think I was good. I really do think the 7s were good. And again, well, you can't call with a pair of 7s. What's the difference? Pair of 7s, pair of 9s, pair of aces. It's all the same crap because a pair of 7s with an ace beats any bluff that he's got, right? So I wasn't worried about, calling and him saying 9s. That wasn't really a fear of mine. But anyway, that was one of the key hands that I played. I don't want to go into all of them, but that one frustrated me because I get frustrated when I make mistakes myself. And, I think that if I'm going to call that turn, my process, when I call the turn, I was like, okay, you're committed. And then I just decided to change my mind for some stupid reason because he bombed it. Exactly what I expect him to do. All right. We're going to also take in one of the emailed hands that I got from one of the listeners, but we'll do that after what I'm actually super excited to talk about because I am a Hearthstone nerd, so I listen to other podcasts that do card breakdowns. So, if you don't know Magic and Hearthstone, what happens is
every few months they come up with new cards that have new powers that do different things. And what you'll have is guys like Brian Kibler or Dills or the Angry Podcast, the Angry Chicken Podcast. They'll break down each card and discuss the value. Is it a good card? Is it a bad card? What can you use it with? How does it play in the game? And again, for a lot of you that don't play those games, you're going to be like, huh? So basically I want to explain what the hell Power Up Poker is. And it's a new innovation from PokerStars that is in alpha right now, which means it is being played by a small group of players that are testing it to just make sure that the game is balanced, that everything's working right, to fix any bugs. So what is it? What the hell is it, right? Okay, well, basically, you're looking at a three-handed sit and go. Okay. No limit hold'em, right? Just regular poker, except there's some added cards, right? Everyone will start with 3 additional cards that are not poker hand cards. It's not ace, king, queen, jack, 10. It's a card that is a power that does something to the board, to somebody's hand, it has some sort of effect on the action in the game. Each one of these cards has a specific cost associated with them. So the more valuable cards, the ones that are whoa, that's a really good card. In Hearthstone, this would be called mana, a mana cost, right? So a cheap card one that we're going to talk about, Clone, that'll cost you 2 mana. A card like Upgrade, that'll cost you 5, okay? Now, to start the game, I'm not sure exactly what they're going with, but roughly around, you start with 3 cards, as I said, and you get 9 total. We're going to call it mana for now because we don't have another. I don't know what the other term is or what they're going to use. So you start with 9, and then every hand that's dealt, it goes up 2, it goes up 2, it goes up 2, up until a cap of 20. So the most you can have, the most power you could use in one hand is 20. So you can use some combos. The most cards you can have in your hand is 3. If you use a card, so now you've only got 2, the next hand you'll get dealt a fresh new one. So you'll have 3. If you spend, say you had 17 mana and you used a 5 mana card, on that hand, then you're going to only have 12 for the next hand. So you're going to have to save up maybe or something like that. And then, it continues till there's a winner, right? Poker. But I want to talk about the cards and what they do, right? And we're going to start with the cheaper cards, and we're going to go up to the better cards. Okay, this is so fun for me. I'm sorry if this bores you, and if it does, we should, because this is really, really cool. All right, so the first card we're going to talk about is Clone. All right, and Clone, essentially what that power does is it says receive a copy of the last power played in this hand. Okay, so let's say your opponent played a card that was a very, very powerful card that did something to the board, right? Well, he can make his bet, and then you can clone that power. So you get that power in your hand, and then you can play it again. So, for example, let's say, and we'll get into some combos later, but let's say, for example, your opponent played a card like Scanner, okay? So Scanner we'll get to. Scanner is view the top 2 cards in the deck, choose whether to discard them, okay? So imagine this guy uses Scanner, right? And I did this when I was playing, and it was awesome. So let's say the guy looks at the Scanner, he sees 2 cards, either keeps or doesn't. Now he raises me, right? So I go, oh, shoot. He must really like the turn and river. So he's just, he's gonna win this hand, right? Except I happen to have a clone in my hand. So I use the clone card. Now I got myself a Scanner, which costs 4 mana, and I had enough mana to use it. So I got to look at the next 2 cards, see what they were, and I got a choice to keep them or discard them. So I threw those 2 cards away. Then I went all in on them. It was so fun. It was so much fun. Okay, next up is X-Ray. X-Ray is another 2 mana cost card, and essentially what that does is it forces all opponents in the hand to expose 1 card. So there's 2 other opponents in the hand. You could do it before the flop. You could do it on the flop. Whenever it's your turn, you could essentially be in the small blind, right, with like King 3 or Queen 4 offsuit. You can X-Ray, see one of your opponent's cards, see that it's a deuce, and go, okay, I'm all in, right? You can X-Ray. X-Ray can also be valuable in a combo with Disintegrate, which we're going to talk about soon in a minute. There's a whole bunch of cool combos you can do. The next card we're going to talk about is Intel. That's a 3 mana cost card, and what it does is you get to view the deck's top card for the rest of the hand. So, if you see a flop, you play the Intel card, you get to see what the turn is, and then once you're at the turn, you get to see what the river is. Pretty valuable card. I don't use it that much. I don't know. I don't think it's that good, frankly. I think, like, for example, compared to Scanner's a much better card. Number 4 is a card called Disintegrate, and this one's fun. So Disintegrate is destroy a targeted board card this street. Okay, so imagine you have 2 queens, and you're in a 3-bet pot. And it comes like ace 7-4, okay? And now you think, oh man, this guy's got ace king, he's got whatever, right? Well, you take that Disintegrate card, you can explode, you can destroy the ace, or the ace no longer exists. It just goes poof, gone. So now you're playing a 6-card game with the guy. So the guy basically, he could have bet that flop with ace king. Now you've just taken his ace away. Your queens are good. You can go all in on them. Boom. A really cool way to use a combo here, as I mentioned before, is you have that X-Ray. So you have X-Ray and Disintegrate. You could do this, essentially. Let's say the flop comes, Queen 10-4, and you have ace 10. Okay? And now the guy bets. You can X-Ray, take a look, see. You have a 50-50 chance to see if he does have top pair. So now you see that he has a queen. You're like, okay, so he's got top pair. Well, guess what? I use my X-Ray. That cost me 2. I'm going to Disintegrate, get rid of the queen. Now I've got top pair 10s with an ace. Look at me. How awesome is that? I really enjoy that card. It's probably my favorite, the Disintegrate card, especially in a combo with X-Ray. All right, next we're going to move on to a 4 mana cost card. I call it mana. I don't know if it's mana. It's probably not going to be called mana. Something else. It's called EMP. And this card, it prevents powers in this street. So let's say you flop the nuts, or you've got the nuts on the turn, and you don't want nobody messing with the board or doing some funky stuff. You go all in, you play EMP, boom, board froze. They cannot use any powers. So you basically play, hold them normal the rest of the way through, or at least for that street, I believe. And then, the next street, they can play a power again. But EMP is a good card to use a lot of the time if you're going all in. Number 4, we talked a little bit about Scanner. Scanner is a card where you can view the top 2 cards in the deck and choose whether to discard them. This is a really, really powerful card, I think. Really powerful. You see a flop, you have some sort of like a draw. You get to like see if you made it, and if not, you can throw it away and have a better shot at maybe making it. It's like, I don't know, this card seems like it might be what we call in Hearthstone broken, in that it's like probably too good. It is a high cost at 4, but feels really, really powerful, especially in combos with X-Ray and Clone and different things like that. But I don't know, we'll see how. Basically, we have some of the smartest people from all genres, poker players as well as gamers, testing out the game to make sure that everything is balanced and fun, and nothing's like too powerful. So I'm sure, and again, this isn't necessarily the rollout for what will ultimately be available to everybody. This is just like what they released on the corporate on the PokerStars corporate blog. So that's the hand. Those are the cards I'm going over. For 5 mana now, this is a powerful card. It's called Engineer. And it essentially works like the Discover mechanic in Hearthstone for those that play Hearthstone. And what it does is you choose the deck's next card from 3 options. So, you're on the turn, right? You've got a flush draw, okay? Well, you play this card, and you got 3 chances to hit that flush because you can pick whichever card you want it to be on the river. If you think your opponent's got the flush draw and you've just got, overpair like aces, you can pick that big old juicy deuce that definitely doesn't complete his hand. So Engineer can be a really powerful card, and that's why it costs 5. The next 5 cost card is called Reload, and Reload allows you to redraw selected hole cards. So that means you could have King 3 offsuit, okay? Somebody raises on the button. You could just, if you choose to, go, you know what? I don't really want a 3, so I'm going to throw the 3 away, but I'm going to keep the king, and I'm going to try to make a pair of kings or an ace king or an ace queen, something like that. You get to say you could throw both cards away. You can also do this after the flop. Okay, you could literally just go, whatever. Like I'm probably gonna lose a hand anyway. Let me reload, see if I can get lucky, and catch something that's on that board. The last card that they released that of how many was it? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards I think. Last card is called Upgrade, and this card is essentially the pineapple card. What it does is it allows you to draw a 3rd hole card, then discard 1. So you can do this before the flop. You can do this before the flop. You can do this on the flop. You can do this, on the turn, whenever you choose to. It gives you an extra option to. I'm surprised this card costs 5. Now that I think about it, because you have to discard 1. I guess it is pretty powerful, like before the flop, to have 3 cards, then see a flop. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. For 5 mana, that seems like a very, very expensive card. It's got value, of course, because like anytime you can get an additional card, added to your hand, that's like a really good thing. You could like essentially, there's a lot of things you could do with it. I'm trying to think about how. Again, it's not my favorite card. It's usable, but there's so many better cards there. Now, how this game works is, you don't know which cards you're starting with. It's random, just like cards are random. Like sometimes you're going to get aces a lot, sometimes you're going to get 9 deuce a lot. Well, in this game, similar. The rotation of the cards that you're going to start with and that you're going to draw are also going to be random. So you might have, like 3 disintegrates. You might have 3 clone. I don't know if I'm not sure if there's duplicates. I think there might be duplicates. But anyway. Lots of fun stuff you can do with the combos and different things. And what I love about this approach to poker in terms of like what they're doing is that much like Hearthstone and the other games, it's difficult to solve, okay? Because it takes some time to figure out like the best ways to play these things. The skill advantage in this thing is very, very high, especially for players with a background in Magic and Hearthstone. So my only concern is like, it'll be difficult for bad players to win. It'll be tough but here's the thing. In terms of solving the game, as long as you keep the game fresh by, what we call nerfing cards, which means makes them 1 card less powerful, or introducing new cards and rolling out different types of powers and things like that. If you do that every 3 months or so, by the time people have like, quote unquote, solved the best way to play the game changes. So it's like all brand new. So it allows for like the best poker minds, the smartest people to kind of think about different strategies with the new cards. This is exactly what happens in Hearthstone. Okay, all the smart players, as soon as the new card releases come out, the best minds are the ones who can figure out, okay, wow, this is going to help me with this. It's going to help me with this. It's going to help me with this. I should play this with this. And I'm excited to see what happens for the future of this game, because I think this could literally be a game changer for poker. And it is poker, all right? Just because it's fun and a little bit more fun than the poker you play right now doesn't mean it's not poker. It's just poker with superpowers. And like I said, I'm super excited for this rollout. I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm very confident that it will be out this year. And when it does come out, I expect to see a lot of people having fun with it. I think that, hopefully, if I'm able to, I'll be able to Twitch some of this specific game, because I could play. When I've played it, I just don't want to stop. It's really, really fun. It's just a lot of fun. All right. Anyways, guys, I've been, what do you call it? Talking your ear off for how long? I don't know, 45 minutes or so. Let's go over one hand from an email. Who was this from? What was her name again? Let's see. Her name was Katayon Katerzai. I'm probably screwing that name up. But, yeah, Katie Katayon Katerzai. Okay, so, anyway, she's in this hand. I think she, right? Let me double check. I don't know. Could be a dude. Nope. Yeah, it's a girl. All right. So she mentions it's day 3 of the $3 million guaranteed championship. It begins at noon with 168. Oh, no, never mind. That's the info there. So she said, this is a hand I played recently in the World Poker Tour main event at Borgata. She started day 3 with 32 big blinds. 168 players made it to day 3, and 130 get paid. She says, I didn't recognize most of the players except seat 6, which is a gentleman by the name of Ian Searing, who is the second chip leader at the table. She said she played with him once before. He's an aggressive recreational player. You wrote it, so I'm going to say it. And she goes, I don't think he's a very good player, though. LOL. Okay. So this hand involves him. A couple hands in the first level. She says she's in the big blind. 2,500, 5,000 blinds with a 500 ante, and she's got the ace-7 of clubs. Huh, how weird. That's the hand that I donked it off with against David Peters. So she's got big blind, ace-7 of clubs. Ian, who's under the gun +1, opens to 12,000, and it's folded to her. And she decides to call. This is totally standard. This is the right play. The ace. You don't really like playing against players raising from under the gun, but your hand is way too good to fold for 7,000 more, so I like the call. 3 bets, kind of risque, so far so good. So the flop comes 10, 8, 4 rainbow. She has the ace-7 of clubs. There is one club, and it is the 8 of clubs. She checks. Mr. Ian Searing checks. Well, the turn's the 5 of clubs. Okay, so now she's got a gutter, the nut flush draw, and ace high. She checks. I'm just going to go through what happened, and then we're going to go back through the hand and just talk about whether we like it. She checks the turn. Her opponent bets 16,000. She calls. Now, she started this hand with, what did she say, 146,000, she said? Yeah, started with 146,000. All right, sorry, just a little weird here, just looking at the email. So she checks and calls the 16K. Now, the river is the 8 of clubs, which pairs the board, but gives her the nut flush. Pretty good card. Can't imagine you'd be too worried about this. She bets 30,000. Big, hefty value bet. The guy gets up from his seat, checks the rest of her stack, and he puts a whole bunch to me all in. Puts her all in. And she said, I had to fold. She said, I feel like I played this hand wrong in every step. What do you think? Well, Kat, not going to disagree. I think you played the hand fine before the flop. I think you played the hand excellent on the flop. After that, that's where we got problems. So let's have Dr. Negreanu look back at that turn card, okay? Now, you turned a pretty big freaking hand. The guy checked back the flop on a pretty dangerous, like a board that, if he's got an overpair, he's betting. Yeah, sure, he may have a set, but so what? If he's got a set, you can get your 6, you can get your club, right? This is a spot where you got to take the lead and you got to bet. All right? I would go ahead and bet the 15,000 or whatever. And, if he raises a nominal amount, you likely have enough outs where you can make the call. But you want to take a stab. See, if he has ace queen, ace jack, ace king, which is a very likely holding for him to have since he checked back the flop, your turn bet might get him to fold a lot of those hands, right? Because you took the initiative. So I think that you should probably be betting this turn. Now, once you do check and he bets the 16,000, you certainly can't fold. You could make a case for turning this into a bluff and check raising. Not the worst play. This would be player dependent though. This would be based on having a real good understanding of your opponent. So in a vacuum, I would say that the right play would be to just call if you're choosing to check. But again, I much prefer the bet here. Now the river, you make the flush and you bet 30,000. Pretty hefty size you're betting there. Because, first of all, what do you have? He knows you don't have no freaking full house. You just check the flop, check call the turn, no big deal. Now the 8 comes and you're betting. Pfft, come on. The best you can have is a flush. Best, maybe. And you have a flush? You didn't even bet the turn. How do you have a flush? It doesn't look like you have very much here. The way that you played the hand looks kind of like you could be bluffing with a hand like Jack 9 suited. Or, like Queen Jack's, Jack 9 suited, essentially. Basically the only hand you'd really be, bluffing with that made sense. So you bet this 30,000, which again is a little on the hefty side. Not right, not wrong necessarily. I probably would have went for something closer to 25, but 30's fine. But when the player goes all in, here's the problem you're facing, because as I mentioned, he knows you don't have a full house. I don't know how good or how bad he is, right? But you always have to be aware of when what we're going to use a phrase called when your range is capped. What that means is when you can only have a certain level of strength in a hand, and it's not the nuts, right? And everyone knows it. Like everyone who watches his hand knows you don't have a full house, right? There's no way you have a full house. Best you have is a flush. So whenever you're in these spots where your range is capped, often in a lot of cases you want to play very careful and check. This isn't one of those spots. I definitely like the bet of 25,000. But when the guy raises you have to factor in the fact that if he's any good, he knows that you don't have a full house, but he could. Because the way he played his hand, his range, so your range is capped, right? To flushes, means that's the best you can have. That's what I'm saying by capped. His range is not capped at flushes. His range is, he could have 4-8s. He could have 10s full. He could have 10-8. He could have all these different hands and feasibly check the flop, bet turn, and jam the river when you raise. So you put yourself in a really, really tough spot because your hand is as strong as you basically have the top of your capped range. You have the best possible hand you can have. Now, as a general rule, when you have the best possible hand you can have and you bet it for value and get raised, against good players, you have to make the call, okay? You don't have to fold. Now, against weaker players who are not sophisticated enough to know all this stuff, to think in those terms of whether your range is capped and blah, 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 yeah, sure, maybe, you can make some cases for folding. But as a general practice, you should bet this river and actually, in some cases, hope that he raises you. Because what do you think he's going to do with a king-high flush? Like, if he had king-9 of clubs, you don't think he's going to raise you on that river? Sure, why not? He only loses to one hand. Any flush that he has, a lot of players might raise you. Maybe not a really small flush, but what small flush could that be? 6, yeah. Jack high, Jack 9 of clubs, he probably bets the flop with that hand. So, I don't know, man. What do you have? Ace 7 of clubs. Yeah, Jack 9 of clubs, Queen 9 of clubs. He raised in the second position, so it's a little less likely, although you say he's aggressive. So again, overall, if you're going to bet this 30, because your range is capped and you have the top of it, I think you got to make that call. Like, I don't think you can, long term, if people know you fold this hand, they're going to bully you real bad. So you don't want to let these guys bully you. But thanks for sending me the hand. It was actually quite interesting. It made me think about, just sort of how you went through it and your thought process. So thanks again. And for those of you who want to potentially get your hand read on the podcast and have me kind of go over it, send it to, look at this, Christian's not here today. I don't know if you can tell, because maybe whatever, but send it to Dnegspodcast dnegspodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to go with that, and if not, it'll be in the show notes because he's going to edit this after and do it. This is the first time I've done the podcast without him here. He usually is sitting by my side, and so hopefully the sound quality is okay, and I didn't screw this up. I just wanted to get a podcast out to you guys because I know that you guys have been, itching for one, and I want to keep it on a regular schedule. We're not always going to have guests. We're going to have guests sometimes. Whenever I have some issues I want to talk about in the poker world, we're going to do that. My schedule looks like tomorrow morning, getting on a plane, flying to San Francisco through JetSmarter, and they do not sponsor this, but I just think they're awesome. They actually just came up with homes, JetSmarter homes. So they've got luxury homes in different cities where you can basically like Airbnb, but super sick homes. So I might take a look at that, not for this trip, but for future trips. So flying to Bay 101, really a fun tournament. If you've never played it, it's the Shooting Stars where, I'll have a bounty on my head, which means you get short stacked. Everyone's coming for it because they get actual cash money for busting me. So always a fun event, a tough event to play for me because it starts at 11 a.m. We're asked to be there 10:45. When you are a Shooting Star, they want you there on time. I typically late reg, and it's like a 10-level day, so you're going till late, and it's really important for me if I want to have success is to get through day 1A so I don't have to re-enter on day 1B. So that way I can take the day off and grind because it's a shorter tournament. It's not like a 6-7 day thing like they did have a WPT in Commerce Casino. It's like 4 or 5 days and it's over. So that's my schedule. Bay 101. I wanted to celebrate. Can I celebrate? I want to celebrate something. All right. I did a 3-month workout program called Shortcut to Size. Gained about 7 pounds of muscle. Was very happy about that. And then I went right into the second phase of that program. It's a different program, but it's called Shortcut to Shred. 6 weeks of getting rid of some body fat, which is something I've just kind of had on me because I typically eat a pretty carb-heavy vegan diet, and I have for a while. And it just, if you're gaining muscle, you're gaining weight, you're gaining everything, right? So I gave this a try, and I finished it today. I didn't miss one single day of the Shortcut to Size. I didn't miss one single day of the Shortcut to Shred. I literally planned out my meals for 6 weeks. I made a spreadsheet and wrote out the macros for every single meal, every single day, and I just completed that today. Feeling strong, feeling sexy. My soccer game's improved, my speed, my stamina. It's been really fabulous. I highly recommend it for those of you that are trying to lose some weight in a safe way. It's a 6-day-a-week program in terms of workouts, and I followed the meal plan to a T, although I don't eat beef or meat because I'm a vegan, but I basically made substitutions, and I was able to do that. So tomorrow, I'm going to check out, I'm going to celebrate at Millennium, which is a restaurant in San Francisco, I think. It's a vegan restaurant. It's supposed to be really good, gourmet stuff. So I'm going to celebrate, maybe even have a glass of wine, maybe some champagne, maybe some Pinot, some Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Merlots, all kinds. I'm going to pour it up in a bowl, and, put some soda and just drink it up. I don't know. No, so I'm excited. I just, I'm really proud of myself, not going to lie, for just the transformation that I've seen since I've taken my health on in a really dedicated way. And I hope to inspire other people that are listening to this podcast to do the same for themselves, whatever it is, I know it can be a daunting task sometimes if you do have a lot of extra weight and baggage to attack that and think, man, it's just so much, it's so hard. Well, I mean, this is a cliche, but every journey starts with the first step. Every 3,000-mile journey starts with the first step, right? So I always advise people, I'm like, you know what? You don't have to jump into some crazy program right away. Just start walking. Just start doing some burpees. Just start doing some push-ups. Start doing something, and then maybe something ignites in your brain where you start to get a little more addicted. You start to see some results, and then you want more and more and more. So my plan now, from a physical perspective, is after Bay 101, I'm going to go back to golfing because I miss it. I haven't golfed in really in 2 years. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to golf during the day, play soccer at night, and then go to the gym in the evenings, which is something I haven't done. But I'm very, very excited about the, month or so before my next trip to Monte Carlo. And then after Monte Carlo, a few more weeks in between until it's time for the Super High Roller Bowl, followed, of course, by the World Series of Poker. The Super High Roller Bowl is going to be nuts because not only is there a 300K, the day before there's a 100K, the day before there's a 50K, the day before there's a 25K, there's rebuys, P-buys, like this. My goodness, you could be stuck $2 million before the freaking World Series starts. But it's fun, Gotta love it. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast. I just want to keep in touch. make sure that I'm providing content that you want. So if there's anything specific that you'd like to hear me talk about in the poker world, whether it's strategy, whether it's poker issues, send me an email at dnegspodcast@gmail.com. Check out my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Dnegreanu. Monday tip videos, Thursday hand breakdowns, vlogs, all kinds, yo. I'm in a content business right now. I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying this. So, again, guys, here we are. Blah, blah, blah. We're at the end, right? So this is where we just blah, blah, blah until I figure out how the hell I want to just say goodbye. So I can't think of anything better than just a good old-fashioned see you next time.